Welcome, everyone. My name is Margarita Loinaz, and pronouns she, her, and I am joining you from Coast Miwok land in Mill Valley, California. And it's such a joy to be with the Sangha again. Always, always such a precious community that we have. And what to tell you a little bit. Some of you I know, and perhaps some of you may be new. And so I will tell you just a little bit about myself in case some of you don't know much about my training or anything like that. So I'm originally from Dominican Republic, and I've trained in both the Tibetan tradition and the Vipassana tradition. And in the Tibetan line, my main focus has been the practice of Dzogchen for the last, I don't know, maybe 17 years or so. And my teaching is coming primarily from that tradition. So you'll notice that as we go through the evening. So with that, I just want to invite us to become aware of where we are, the land that we are with gratitude for this life, for the opportunity to receive the teachings, gratitude for the ancestors of the land where we are. And here in California, being aware of the various tribes and that were here originally and knew how to live in harmony with the earth, something we're trying to relearn again. And then our own gratitude for our own ancestors physically that allowed us to incarnate through this karmic stream that we're part of, with our families. So the ancestors that came before and the future generations that will come, just being aware and grateful for them and for the stream of awareness that flows through that and support. And gratitude for this earth that allows us to incarnate and have a life that when there's the opportunity of understanding some of the deepest truths about embodiment. And so with that, then I'll go into the refuges. I use a fourth refuge. Some of you are already familiar with that, but if not, just follow me and we'll do the refuges, and then we'll do what in Tibetan Buddhism we call bodhicitta, which is sort of inclining the heart in the right way, because that inclination facilitates an opening in our mind and hearts. So I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Supreme Mother, the perfection of sublime knowing. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Supreme Mother, the perfection of sublime knowing. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I take refuge in the Supreme Mother, the perfection of sublime knowing. And so in the bodhicitta, for the sake of everything that is arising, may I reach complete understanding. For the sake of everything that is arising, may I reach complete understanding. For the sake of everything that is arising, may I reach complete understanding. So for our meditation, I'm going to guide us for a while because the focus tonight is really see if we can have, a real recognition of what our ground actually is, what our essence is. And so this body that we inhabit, this body, this mind, this heart, this whole thing is the vehicle for experience. Our essential nature, which is not just limited to this individual body, can only experience itself and know itself through embodiment. So this body that we have with the mind and the emotions and all of it in it, it's really the vehicle for experience. And it's also the vehicle through which we come back to understand what we actually are. It's nowhere else. I mean, we can read books, we can do practices, we can do this and that, but it's really through the combination of this vehicle that we have, the body, mind, heart, that we move through life and find freedom. So if you can get yourself in the position that is comfortable to meditate, I'm actually going to record just the instructions for myself. I'm sorry. So settling into the position that is most comfortable, whether you're sitting or lying, or sometimes people might want to even stand up if they're very sleepy. Just become aware of your body, the whole envelope of your skin, so that you're aware of the perimetry of your body. And tuning into the densest part, which are the bones, particularly the bones of your pelvis and legs. But also allowing the rest of the bony structure to light up, if it will, without a lot of effort. And just feel how our bones register the holding of gravity. These bones give our body structure. And the mineral in these bones is similar to the mineral in the rocks and in the earth itself. So we can allow our minds to tune into the minerals in our bones connected to the minerals of the earth. Just allow yourself a little bit of time just to see if that connection can happen for you. And notice the quality as that happens, the quality of settling that can come with that. We suffer a lot of anxiety from feeling disconnected from the earth. So notice even sometimes this connection allows for a spontaneous movement throughout the body that begins to free itself from the holding that we normally carry. So you may be aware of just a certain dynamism, motion within the body that is amorphous somewhat, like the ocean. The way the water moves in the ocean is free to shift in any direction. And when our bodies are relaxed and free, we can perceive this kind of motion within our own bodies. It's like the movement of life itself. And I invite you, if it's comfortable, to gently allow your eyes to open very slightly without focusing on any objects, but let the attention just rest in the space while still being aware of the dynamism in your body and its connection to the earth. And just see if you notice any feeling state. It may be that things are settling and there isn't a lot of emotion going through. But if there is a lot of emotion that's calling for attention, you can let yourself put your hand over your heart if it feels appropriate. And just allow that to be as it is without manipulating it in any way. Just allow whatever feeling is there to be there for as long as it needs to be, allowing it to come and go in its own time without grabbing onto it or pushing it away. Just like the movement of the water in the ocean, allowing the feeling to be free, to be itself as it is. If the feelings are quiet, then just let yourself rest. In the immediacy of just the sensorial experience without a lot of thinking or feeling, just sensing. And then lastly, becoming aware of the mind, the function of the mind. There may be a lot of activity there with thoughts coming and going, or it actually could be quiet. So notice just the mental state. And begin to be aware that there's this great spacious awareness within which the thoughts are coming and going. And allow the thoughts to come and go without, again, grabbing onto them or pushing them away. It's as if that open awareness is like the sky, and the thoughts are clouds that come and go. So in between the clouds, we are in the radiance of that awareness and resting. Possibly vividly awake. There's the presence of that can know without necessarily labeling everything. So let yourself rest in the gap between the thoughts, in just that dynamic sensorial experience of the body at rest. And we'll remain like this for the rest of the time. And notice that we are all supported right now by this field of awareness that coalesces outside of time and space. So no matter where you are, coming together in the Sangha, we are held in a field of awareness that is unified and that supports us and potentiates our insight. And see if you need to adjust your posture so that you're comfortable. Continue to be. If you want to experiment with your eyes open, you can also allow the eyes to be like a window, and your attention does not go out the window. You continue to rest inside the window, relaxing into that ground of knowing. And as best you can, allow the flow of experience to be unimpeded without holding on, pushing, grasping at anything. Just allow the flow of knowing, which has its own wisdom, to occur without any manipulation. So different feelings or sensations might come and go, just allowing what is real to happen. in the last 2 or 3 minutes, if you're able to become aware of this field of awareness that we are in and allow it to really become conscious, to let it support your meditation, to recognize it, and feel its impact on your practice. You know, as we are living through these times that we are going through, a lot of us are thinking about resilience, like, what does that mean? And we have so many different ideas and things we're trying. And despite that, you know, a lot of times I certainly feel pushed to my limit and sort of, and how that is pushing my practice. And so, what is real resilience? You know, what allows us to not fall apart, to not cave in, to not give up, to not be stuck in despair for days on end? I mean, despair certainly comes, but what allows us to pick ourselves up over and over and over and continue to use experience to grow with and to learn and find new ways of working with our own life situation? When the Buddha attained enlightenment, you know, the early teachings, one of the things that we all are familiar with are the Four Noble Truths, that somehow the way we're living, how this world is sort of organized, involves a tremendous amount of suffering. And how, and he discovered, like, what was that suffering about? And so one of the things that he described as the root of suffering in different ways of describing this, grasping, you know, holding on to, let's say, identifying with the content, all of that, or pushing away the constant manipulation and inability to just be with things as they are, as they present themselves. That constant manipulation he saw as a source of suffering, and that there was something about the way that we perceive that just had this sort of unsatisfactory nature to it. Even the pleasant things would just be around for a little while, then they're gone. And so we're back to, dealing with difficulty. But in a deeper sense, the second noble truth has to do with not recognizing our essence. And because we don't recognize our essence, the view that we have of reality is distorted. And how we respond to the joyful and the painful and in between, there's not a lot of freedom in the way we respond, because we are not able to see reality as it is. We're constantly engaged in identifying with every thought and then manipulating everything to try and have it be the way we want it to be. So then the third noble truth was that, there was a way to address this. And the fourth was, the Eighth Noble Path. In Dzogchen, going deeper, which is at the base of Buddhist teachings, is what is described in Dzogchen. And it says, what constitutes the ground of confusion and suffering is our own essence not recognizing itself. So our own essential nature, that ground that, as we were meditating, we were just starting to, sometimes you can literally feel, it's like we're inhabiting a frequency. There's a presence, and that presence, we could feel it. I certainly could feel it. And I mean, I'm not counting on every single person being able to feel it, but I'm sure many of you could feel that we are in a field of something that feels deep and sacred and profound and open and not limited by time and space. And so when we come together like this, there's a basic intention. There's our motivation. And so all of this is our essence is coming forward to the meeting. And so with our essential nature coming forward into the meeting, we are literally creating a field of awareness. And that field holds us and supports us. So, but we live in a world where that kind of relaxing back and recognition of that ground, there's really no support for it. First of all, these teachings are hard to buy. And second, you get the teachings and you try to practice, but you walk out in the world and, we're all walking around totally identified with who we think we are and everything about us and all our positions and all our opinions. And we feel mostly comfortable when we are with others that think and feel and see everything the way we do. And, there's a real human need to be understood, to be received, and to be in community. That's part of the human nature. But this is deeper. This is about the pain of not knowing that underneath the story, there is something else. And as we develop, then we understand how the story actually fits, like how we use the story of our lives to awaken, so that it's not like something you want to do away with or have to get rid of. It's just to understand the different aspects of what we are and what we are able to experience. So this essence is spontaneously and intrinsically there. It's just present. And when we turn towards our individual predicament, or our feelings and how we're caught and our misery or our bliss, or, when we open and are willing to really look at what is true in our experience. The willingness to go there and face it and be with it and allow it to unfold and inform us and teach us. That allowing, it's like we take the embodied experience with all of its associated mental and emotional activity, we honor it, and then we realize that all of this is arising out of that ground of awareness. Where else is it going to come from? The ground of being is the origin of everything that happens, including all of our thinking and even our distorted view and all of it. So, and what is amazing is that out of that, it's like we work psychologically to deal with our wounds. And it's not just the psychology and understanding how we've been impacted by experience and how that's made us, process in a particular way, like certain things, I'm particularly sensitive to rejection, for example. So anything that smells like rejection, I'm sure I'm being rejected, So then it's just a pattern. It's a really old pattern. And so now when I see myself starting to go down that interpretation, then I ask the question, is this really happening, or am I just sort of, working with my own habit of perceiving in a particular way? So in the past and in some of the day-longs, we have done this exercise where we speak, we're exploring whatever we're exploring, and we have someone listening. And as we unpack, what's there without censoring in any way, but we actually become aware of what's there and we're being listened to. And then eventually that person can reflect back like what we've said. And if they don't get it right, then we can say, no, but what I meant was this. And then they're there to be really listening and reflecting back. When we receive that kind of reflection, it's as if, from the time we're babies, we need to be received and understood. That's part of the human, basic human need. So when we receive that, and that experience lands back, there's a relaxation in the system, in the whole nervous system, that then makes it possible. We're literally relaxing back into the ground of being. And if we have the teachings, we can recognize that we are relaxing back into a non-conceptual ground. Because when the nervous system really settles, the mind gets quiet. There's not a whole lot of content a lot of times. And you just sort of open, resting. It's like resting in awareness. And that is the refuge. And from there is where unshakable resilience comes from. Because that essence is unconditioned. The conditioned experience, and this is what's magical, because as we resolve our pain, as we heal and we are received, as we connect with community and we feel ourselves part of the web of life, these are like human functions that need to be fulfilled. As those functions are fulfilled, the rattle in the cage calms down and we can relax back into our essence. So it's not like the conditioned part of us, there's something wrong with it. We just need to be able to work with it and use it to come back home. Because all that conditioning originated at home, in our essence. All this experience is just the radiance of awareness, manifesting as it does through our psychology, through our history, through our experience. This is all originating from that ground. And if we are able to work with that which is originating from that ground and use it to gain a deeper understanding of how things actually are. Where we land back is we land back in our own true nature. And that freedom cannot be taken away. We might lose connection to that ground and then, feel all rattled. But when we come back there, it is there. It cannot be destroyed. We can lose connection to it, but that ground of being is unshakable. And so it's also one of the precious things about life is just the incredible richness of what our lives involve. The different cultures that we come from, all the fabric of our lives. And I always say, the road to awakening is in the fabric of our lives. We can't work with somebody else's fabric. We have to work with our own. And so in some cultures, the experience of continuity, because a lot of our suffering also comes from feeling fragmented, feeling separate. Like when we were doing the meditation and I tune into the bones and connect the bones to the earth, and we feel that grounding. And after you feel the grounding, you start to feel almost the dynamism in the body as it's connecting to the ground. That's like making our way back home in terms of feeling the absolute interconnectedness of everything. This mind and this body at this location has this capacity to perceive, but this body is connected to everything. And so when we did that meditation, sometimes you can feel as you do that, connecting to the earth, that the freedom of motion in the body actually starts to show up. So, sometimes there are cultures, particularly indigenous cultures, where people have stayed in the land that the culture developed and all that, they have an advantage because there's a continuity of connection. And so tonight, I actually, for some reason, I was tuning into the ocean, and there's so many metaphors in meditation of feeling ourselves like a wave in the ocean. And this is telling you a little story. In 1990, I come from an island myself, but in 1990, through a series of amazing blessings, I ended up in Hawaii at a time when the native people were doing all these ceremonies to cut a tree to build a voyaging canoe. And the man who was guiding the whole process was the last of the Polynesian, actually Micronesian navigators in the world, Mau Piailug. And he was an amazing human being. And I want to tell you a little bit about him so you get the sense of this is not a Buddhist culture or anything. This is somebody who grew up as a child. His grandfather, they had a voyaging canoe. They had the canoe house that he studied in with his grandfather. He started, I think, at 4 or 5 years old. And all the information about how to navigate was passed down in chants. And later in life, Mao led the Hokulea, was the first canoe that went from Polynesia to Hawaii to prove that people had come that way, and using the ancient navigation techniques. And so Mao was the one that led that. And so I asked him, because he was from Satawal, a little island in Micronesia, and this was Polynesia. And I said, Mao, how did you know the the guidance from I think it was Tahiti to Hawaii? And he said, my grandfather taught me the chant. So he had never made that trip before. He had the chant from childhood. And so he knew what the swells were doing, what the stars are doing. When it's raining and you can't see a star, Mao would lay in his canoe, and with his entire body as the instrument for perception, he could tell by the swells, the big swells in the ocean, how far an island was, how big, and would go there unerringly, even if it's pouring rain in the middle of a storm. Now, that capacity to not only perceive, but act appropriately, respond. I mean, that there he was in the continuum of life without interruption. And so I can't believe that I mean, it was just amazing that I got to meet him. And there was another man from the Marquesas Island, Polynesian man, Tawa, who was also a navigator, but Mao, was off in a league of his own. So as they were cutting this tree, and they were cutting it with stone axes, and Mao would be in silence all day, filing the flint stone as they got dull from trying to cut the tree down. And he would be silent the whole time. And so they cut and cut and cut, and finally there's just a tiny sliver left, and there's this big, triangle of a gap in the trunk of the tree, and it's like the tree's not falling, and why is the tree not falling? And Tawa had been sick and was in his tent, and they say, Tawa is not letting it go. So they go to Tawa's tent, they ask him to come over, and Tawa stands in front of the tree, puts his hand on it, and talks to it, and stands back, and the tree goes down. And so I'm telling you these stories because this is the potential for a human life, And we in urban societies, have lost a lot. But that ground is in all of us. And so how people find resilience, like these islands are now in real trouble because of the global warming and the rising sea levels. So I wanted to read you a poem by a young woman from Saipan in Micronesia, not far from where Mao was from. He passed away a few years ago. So this is Eloise Lopez, and I'm just going to read you her poem. Swish plop, beep 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 up. This is how our horizon will look. The ocean brings a family together. All waves collapsed again into each other, revealing our culture. This is how our horizon will look. The wind will slowly bring the canoe for a race. But really, we're sailing in enlightenment. We're sailing with speed, and we're proud of who we are. This is how our horizon will look. As we trace our steps towards the ocean, the fruit of the water with the color-changing coral and fishes right below us gives us a sign of time, of how we truly became the people we are today. As you sail further from the island, you sail further from your problems. Truly, you finally get to see the beauty of life. This is how our horizon will look. Feet on the water, canoes lying still in the middle of the ocean. You don't hear any cars scratching around the road. You don't hear any cries of yelling from people who are in pain and blaming against each other. You don't hear your name getting called out for all the mistakes you've done. You don't hear those at all. This is how our horizon will look. You hear the ocean calling your name and telling you, it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel negative about what is happening. You hear the water telling you to forgive and mend your mistakes. The water will create waves, but at the end of the big swirl, you control how it becomes in the end. Still and peaceful, it will become. This is how our horizon will look as you switch the sail back to face the wind, foot on the sand, water splashing through your face. You realize hope is like the water, so calm and distorted. And finally, you are at peace. So this is, I just found that so beautiful. It has so many ingredients of non-duality, of seeing into the profundity, and then the precious specifics of a particular life in a particular place. And so each of our contexts has that potential for us to see in that way. And what allows us to see is the recognition of our ground. So this is a culture that's not heavily colonized, even though they've been impinged by Western culture for sure, but they have a lot of their culture is intact. So for ourselves, the process of colonization and transmigration and everything that's happened, how we meet the challenges that we're facing is a little more complex. And one simple thread is going back to, we got this body, mind, heart as the instrument to be here with. So for us to work through what is an obstacle in our path, we have to be in deep intimacy with ourselves. It's like allowing ourselves to know the truth and then being able to honor that truth. And as we allow and honor in a way that other people may not ever be able to do, the understanding that comes up just brings compassion. It brings love. It is being able to turn towards ourselves and recover the capacity to appreciate what and who we are is what brings the resilience. Because when we connect to that ground of what we are, no one can tell you otherwise. When you recognize that, it comes with its own authority, the authority to perceive clearly. And so as I was saying, with our intention, we've built the field of awareness that we are in right now. And so tuning into that just for a moment, I'll just read you a line from Dzogchen. And as we rest in that, feel the space within you, the spacious quality within your own life, the spacious quality within your own body, within your own mind. And so one of the Dzogchen teachings about practice says, rest in the immediacy of inner basic space. That space that is our ground, that is the Great Mother. That's the origin of everything. And our own awareness is a manifestation of that. Thank you for your attention. I want to say something about Micronesia. the Northern Mariana Islands was the place where humans inhabited the islands for the first time. So the traditions there go to the origin of humanity landing in that land. It's very old. So I just wanted to say that. Particularly within the POC community, this is a very common experience. And sometimes within our families, there are patterns where that happens very intensely as well. So what I would say, and that's part of what I try to encourage people within the Sangha, is to see if you can reach out to somebody who would be willing to do an inquiry with you. And so, and the way to do it, I described it a little bit, is, it's formal. Let's say you choose 10 minutes or 15, 10 minutes is, if you've never done it before, feels like a really long time. But let's say you do 10 minutes of exploring, or even 5 minutes of exploring, and the other person is just there in presence. They're not saying anything. They're going, or none of that. They're just in presence there for you. And you are unpacking, and you're going from one feeling to the next, and one idea to the next. And you just let this whole, it's like unpacking a suitcase, and the other person is just there listening. When you are done, then the person reflects back, not every single thing, but the main threads of what they've heard. And if they're not getting you right, then you can say, oh, but what I meant was this and this. And the person receiving, the information can, if you can be very open and in presence, both of you, as much as you can, drop into presence while you do this. And then you reflect back. And then the one that received the reflecting back, not the listener, but the original speaker, then take a moment to see what it feels like to be received that way and understood. Because sometimes pleasant experience, like being received and understood, somebody might do it and it just goes, and we don't even get it, because the brain has a tendency to focus on the negative, and what's pleasant goes by before we even realize it happened, almost. So then it's when you have been received and understood, then reflect back, like, what's it like, wow, for you to really get what I mean and what I'm saying, and for what's it like in my body to receive that kind of attention, and then let it land so that it has the healing, that you can have the healing.
There was one more question about the name of from the chat regarding the name of the Micronesian boatmaker navigator.
Mao Piailug is MAO. You'll find beautiful pictures. Mao Piailug is PIALUG. And the other navigator, I just have the name of Tawa, TAWA. He was from the Marquesas, and Mao Piailug was from Micronesia, from Satawal. We're born into a karmic stream. We need cause and effect for a body to manifest. And so everything that's happened, and now science is catching up with the reality, with epigenetics, where they realize that, we carry the trauma of our ancestors, for example, and it can manifest in different ways. And I'm not like a trauma expert, but I know that trauma, depending on how intense it is, needs very specific work, and it's not something that you kind of go through your mind and you figure out, but it's through the body, because it's that kind of memory is a physical, it's a somatic experience. So finding ways to work with the body, through the body, it's a very integrated way. But the thing that I want to say is that for us to come into the field of teachings like this is an incredible blessing. And in a karmic stream, like some of our ancestors went through unspeakable things, And so here we are in this generation, and we still have our issues and our trouble, but there's an opportunity. And so when we do our work and we face our pain, when we turn towards our pain and we open our hearts to it and find a way to keep opening and opening and opening and opening, to give up the resistance. You have to have the right context and the right support, but it's just like really eventually, I mean, I can tell you just from my own experience, I've gone through so much grief around my family. And every time, and things, don't ever get too easy for too long. They stuff keeps coming up. And I find that every time I face something that I think, I can't figure out, how am I going to get through this? And I realize all I have left to do is to open my heart to it, because I can't even do something to make a difference. I just have to open and not block it, not defend myself from it, because feeling bad feels bad. But it's like, if I let myself feel bad, then just open the heart. And mind you, some of us, you don't want to be pushed over the edge and kind of lose it, but the way to freedom is paved through the drop of the defenses against what's already there, what's already our experience. And the thing is that as much as we're able to follow that thread of opening to what is true, it could be blissful, it could be horrible, it could be like the end of the road, like no exit, like I can't even imagine what tomorrow is going to be like. And you open your heart to that, and you open your heart to that. That is the way to freedom. And then the work that you are doing with your own heart, if you tune into this kind of meditation practice, it's outside of time. So your intention when you free yourself is to free what came before and what comes after. So you are shifting the karmic stream by your own awareness and by your own work and resolution of the kinks that belong to you in this moment, in this life. This is the package you got. So you work with a package, you get to know it really, really well, and you offer the healing for the entire karmic stream before and after, because our essence is outside of time and space. That's why ancestors show up, or future generations are a little bit harder, but reality, the way the ordinary mind perceives, is extremely limited, and it's not like that. It's way beyond that. That's a good question, because in a way, your question is about what the real resilience is about. And this is the way back. You see, through the specifics of our lives, what belongs to each one of us, we have to work it. That's the only place where we can work, is what belongs to us. And then we offer it to the whole. And then it's not only just your own lineage, you offer it to the whole. That's why at the beginning of the meditation, we were saying, for the sake of everything that is arising, may I reach complete understanding. May I reach enlightenment, is what traditionally said. It's because we recognize that whatever healing we do, if we offer it that way, it affects the whole. That's how we shift the consciousness on this planet. We need it. And anybody who has access to these teachings, we need to be doing this. This is our job. thank you. By the power and merit generated through our practice, may all beings throughout all realms of existence come to know the ease of being that lies at the ground of our essential nature. May justice, peace, understanding, and love prevail in our world.